The rise of the East India Company. It all started with a dream, an ambition shared by a group of English merchants who longed to tap into the riches of the East. The year was 1600, and Queen Elizabeth I granted them a royal charter to establish a company that would trade with distant lands. This company, known as the East India Company, EIC, had one simple goal: to make profits through trade. But as time passed, their ambitions grew, and what began as a trading enterprise slowly transformed into an unstoppable force that would dominate an entire subcontinent. The arrival and the first settlements. The British traders arrived in India with a smile, bearing gifts and silver. Their intentions at first seemed peaceful. They only wished to trade, they said. The Mughal emperors, ruling over India's vast and prosperous lands, saw these foreign merchants as insignificant and allowed them to set up small trading posts along the coasts. Soon the British established factories in Surat, 1612, Madras, 1639, Bombay, 1668, and Calcutta, 1690. For a long time, the East India Company remained content with trading Indian goods like spices, textiles, and silk. They paid taxes to local rulers and followed the laws of the land. But as the years passed, they realized something crucial. If they could influence the local rulers, they could control trade. And if they could control trade, they could control everything. The first major victory, the Battle of Plassey, 1757. By the mid-1700s, Bengal had become the richest province in India. But its Nawab, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, was wary of the British and wanted to stop their growing influence. This did not sit well with the East India Company, which had already begun plotting. When war finally broke out, the company's officer Robert Clive used cunning and deception to ensure victory. He secretly bribed Mir Jafar, one of the Nawab's top commanders, promising him the throne in return for betraying his master. When the battle began, Mir Jafar and his men stood by and did nothing, allowing the British forces to win with ease. Bengal fell into British hands, and the company now had its first real territory in India. This was the turning point. The British were no longer just traders, they had become rulers. And once they had tasted power, they wanted more. Expanding the empire, conquering India through wars and alliances. The fall of Bengal gave the British not only immense wealth, but also the confidence to expand further. They realized that many Indian rulers were divided, fighting among themselves for power. The company took advantage of this weakness, offering alliances to some rulers while waging wars against others. The Battle of Buxar, 1764. Not all Indian rulers were willing to surrender their lands so easily. A few years after the Plassey victory, the Nawab of Bengal, Mir Qasim, joined forces with Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II and the Nawab of Awadh to drive the British out. But the company's army was well trained and well equipped. In 1764, at the Battle of Buxar, the British crushed the Indian alliance, securing full control over Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This victory was monumental because it gave the company the right to collect taxes directly from the people. Now, the British were not just ruling from behind the scenes, they were governing like kings. The wars against Mysore and the Marathas, 1767 to 1818. The company was now a powerful force, but there were still strong kingdoms that resisted its rule. Among them were the mighty kingdom of Mysore and the Maratha Empire. The war with Mysore. The ruler of Mysore, Tipu Sultan, was known as the Tiger of Mysore for his fearless resistance against the British. He fought 4 wars against them, but was ultimately defeated and killed in 1799. The Maratha Wars. The Marathas had once ruled a vast empire in India, but they too fell victim to the company's strategy of divide and conquer. After a series of wars, the British finally defeated them in 1818, bringing much of India under their rule. The more the British conquered, the stronger they became. With each battle, they learned the ways of Indian warfare, adapted their tactics, and used advanced weaponry to overpower their enemies. The Anglo-Sikh Wars, 1845 to 1849. The final major Indian power that stood against British rule was the Sikh Empire, led by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Ranjit Singh was a wise and powerful ruler who had built a strong kingdom in Punjab. He had trained his army in European military techniques and kept the British at bay during his lifetime. But after his death, internal conflicts weakened the Sikh leadership. Sensing an opportunity, the British launched the Anglo-Sikh Wars. After two fierce battles, the Sikhs were defeated, and Punjab was annexed in 1849. With this victory, nearly all of India was under British control, from company to crown, the rebellion of 1857 and the end of the East India Company. For nearly 100 years, the East India Company ruled India with absolute power. They imposed heavy taxes, exploited the land, and forced Indian farmers to grow cash crops instead of food, leading to widespread famines. The resentment among Indians grew with each passing year. In 1857, anger boiled over into a full-scale rebellion. The Indian Rebellion of 1857, also called the Sepoy Mutiny, began when Indian soldiers in the British Army revolted. They were soon joined by princes, landlords, and common people who wanted to reclaim their land from British rule. Major battles were fought in Delhi, Kanpur, and Lucknow. The British were taken by surprise but responded with brutal force. Villages were burned and thousands were executed in retribution. The rebellion was eventually crushed, but it changed history forever. Realizing that the company had become too powerful and reckless, the British government stepped in. In 1858, the East India Company was officially abolished, and India was placed under the direct rule of Queen Victoria. The British Raj had begun. The East India Company had started as a group of merchants but ended up controlling an empire. They used treachery, warfare, and political manipulation to seize power, leaving a lasting impact on India. But even as they built their empire, they planted the seeds of resistance. The same people they had conquered would rise again, and after nearly a century of British rule, India would eventually win its freedom in 1947. The story of the East India Company is a tale of ambition, betrayal, and resilience, a reminder that no empire lasts forever.